Hello everybody, my name is Daniel Buitrago. I'm from Manizales. I study at the MIB. I'm a professor at Autonomous University for the undergraduate degree of International Business, teaching green supply chain management and all supply chain management related courses. That's why all the topics we're going to talk about here in this video are related to green supply chain management. The first paper, it's called Motivating Low Carbon Initiatives Among Suppliers, the role of risk and opportunity perception. Primarily, what the authors wanted to do here was to compare uh, what brings some suppliers from big manufacturers to implement low carbon supply chain management practices. The sample here were 877 companies distributed in 37 different countries around the world uh, by using some databases to collect some data related to the practices, also interviews and surveys. They did a binary logistic regression to get all the results. All the limitations here are basically that there's a little empirical evidence and that provided a moderate influence of perceived climate related risks and opportunities among the sample companies. Big conclusions and results in this paper is that in most cases, the company's perception of risk and opportunities is directly and positively related with low carbon supply chain management, but actually, the suppliers' decisions to implement those LCSMCM practices is mainly determined by the customer's request to reduce the greenhouse gases emissions. The second paper, it's about determinants in green of green supply chain green supply chain management logistics in BRICS countries. Basically, here they analyzed some green businesses in BRICS countries by using time series data from 1995 to 2015. They created six indices for logistics performance, and then they did some statistical regressions. At the end, the results were that there's a positive relationship between green logistic indexes and the country's per capita income, and that supply chain management is integrated with the country's economical growth and corporate environmental policies. The main limitation of this study is that there is not a specific definition of what they consider a green business, so it can be easily confused with the application of only green supply chain management practices that are two completely different things. The third paper, it's about identifying the critical factors of green supply chain management. It's a case of a study with Pakistani industries that have implemented green supply chain management practices. The authors created a Dematel model, that's a decision-making trial and evaluation laboratory model. The main limitation here is that they had a small number of enterprises that really have green supply chain management, so the sample was very, very small. But the main result here was the organizational, they understood that organizational involvement is the most important dimension, and it's very useful to implement green supply chain management practices among the businesses. They also determined two other dimensions and 12 factors that can be identified to help management and decision makers to implement good practices in green supply chain management. The fourth paper is about water footprint management. They created a framework about green market behavior, analyzing how that green market behavior can be related to water usage and corporate profitability. They took data from 30 years ago and they created a model of strategic system analysis, dynamic analysis. The main limitation here is that the study focuses only on water consumption, while green supply chain management key factors measured to other measure also two other aspects such as energy consumption and greenhouse gases emissions or carbon dioxide emissions. The main findings here is that under specific green market behaviors and conditions, technological interventions in agriculture are more environmentally and economically sustainable compared to industrial water recycling and reuse. But also, if you want to combine both policies is going to be even more effective. And the last paper now is the environmental footprint study of 7 organic peri-urban orchards network in Spain. The data was collected directly with the orchard owners, helped with the government in Spain. And the limitations here were that the results may contain some errors because of times, the times and the dates they were collected, because they fluctuate between 2007 and 2016. They used also an embryo analysis model that where they also proposed an environmental footprint index. And the main result here is that approximately the 70% of the overall impacts were generated in the indirect activities of the supply chain, where 29% of those emissions were from the extracted petroleum industries, and also the 31% of those emissions were produced by electricity production by using gas or coal. So after reviewing this literature, and because I live in a small city, my question or my research question would be, what are the critical factors for medium-sized enterprises in Manizales that motivates them to apply green supply chain management practices among their business? Well, I'll see you in 2 weeks.